bring in Scott Bauer from the CBOE in Chicago. He is with Prosper Trading Academy. Scott, let's get right into the reaction that we're getting from the market. Surprising, perhaps, that we're not seeing a bigger bump coming on the back of these reports. It seems like investors are a bit cautious given that President Trump and Liu He have yet to meet to at least say, look, this is kind of the starting point to move forward.
Yeah, very cautious. Cautious optimism is probably the right way to look at it. And, I'm just not even sure that if that's what they announced, what Bloomberg is reporting, some tariff concessions and that China is going to buy some more agricultural products. I'm not sure that gets us to sustain this rally here. I think the market is really hoping for more. And if that's exactly what we see, I would actually expect a little bit of a pullback from there.
So we are expecting, again, that meeting to take place at 2:45, so 45 minutes from now. Yep. Scott, I'm wondering what it will take to kind of take that veil of uncertainty, if you will, away from investors. Do we need to hear from President Trump to maybe perhaps show that things are going to move beyond just ag purchases? What specifically do you think investors are going to be looking for there?
I think it's going to be really interesting because we're going to have, about an hour of trade or so prior to the close. So yes, I think that the market is looking for President Trump to come out and say something because we've seen the tweets before, we've seen the rhetoric before, over and over repeatedly, and then they haven't panned out. So the market is really hinging upon President Trump to come out in the next 45 minutes or an hour or so to say, yes, this is the deal that is in place. However, again, if it is just what Bloomberg has reported, I actually think the market may be a little bit disappointed in that.
Yeah, we should point out that it does feel like we've been here before where the two sides have kind of been on the verge of some kind of truce, if you will, only to have some of those negotiations fall apart. But I want to backtrack a bit to talk about that tweet from President Trump earlier today that really did lead to the rally in the market we've seen today. The president weighing in on those negotiations with China, saying good things are happening at China Trade Talk meeting. Warmer feelings than in recent past, more like the old days. I will be meeting with the vice premier today. All would like to see something significant happen. Now, picking up on your point, Scott, why do you think we did see a rally on the back of some of those words coming from the president, given that didn't really signal that a breakthrough was coming?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to note the bond market over the last couple days, and that could have been the leader into the equity market pop that we saw today. Much trade really on the risk off side of things. So, there's definitely some skepticism about that, but the president tweeting this morning, the market bought into it, and so far, if you bought into it and you got long, you've been rewarded for that. However, I would be extremely cautious going into this last hour of trade or so after the president speaks.
And Scott, two other geopolitical headlines we've been tracking very closely today. One that has certainly seen the price of oil spike after an Iranian oil tanker was struck by missiles in the Red Sea off the coast of Saudi Arabia. The other move we've been watching is out of the UK and a potential breakthrough on that front on Brexit talks. And we saw the pound surge against the dollar on the back of that. What kind of moves have we seen today on the back of some of those headlines?
Yeah, so let's talk about Brexit first. And, these are really the first positive sort of announcements that we've seen in quite a while. Now, it's obviously getting down right to the deadline here with October 31st being the deadline. To me, this is setting up ideally for an extension, a potential extension for Brexit going into 2020 so that perhaps they can continue these talks. I know Boris Johnson apparently had some really good talks with the Irish Prime Minister today, but next week is really crucial because the EU is meeting in Brussels next week. So I think that is really the timetable for me to see that, okay, there could be some potential progress here, extended again into early 2020.
Okay, Scott, appreciate you keeping us in the loop here on a very busy Friday. Scott Bauer there joining us from the CBOE.